Said hip hop's dead. I disagree with that statement, so don't repeat that shit again. And think of me when you say it, cause I'm the reason that it's breathing. Put it back on the stretch of the real deal. But you listen to them cats who play dress up. I'm a passive aggressive bastard eating rappers for breakfast. I got them pissed. They should go and cop a cat to the next, cause it'll be like fucking for the first time. It'll happen in seconds.
All right, what's going on, everybody? I am a still very sick Wookie. Joined here by my normal compatriots. We got the stud show, Drazcore.
Yes,
I was going to call you the smoke show.
The smoke show?
The smoke show, yeah. Because, I mean, you're sexy-ish.
I'll take it.
Okay.
I'll take it.
Back out of the room now. Slowly back out of the room now.
It might be the fever coming through. I got fever. It's only conditions. More cowbell. And we got Ewok.
Hold on. Did you say 98 degrees?
Yes. It's the hardest thing. I think I'm going through, like, I don't know how many of our listeners actually know, like, the horrible 90s boy band music.
No, that's why it was a joke that went straight over their head. And, you know, I have to be able to join Drazcore, the stud over there.
The smoke show.
Who had so many jokes that you missed.
Oh, I didn't
went right over that. No, we're gonna keep throwing these one-liners that only a few people will know. And since our audiences, you know, they weren't born at that time, we're pretty good.
I looked at our demographic. It's most of these jokes aren't going to pan out. Just saying. But anyways, we're all here together again today. No Dan. Dan's working the graveyard shift. So he will not be with us. Got a bunch to go over today. I think we're starting it out with Newton, correct?
Yeah, well, we have a little teaser that I want to go ahead and throw in first. So, hello, Keyforge community. So great to be here. Next week, I know that we've been releasing kind of a week later, but if you hear this, kind of check out, come stop by Archon's Corner. We're not going to be recording on our usual Thursday night, but we're going to move it to Friday, January 28th. So we do have someone listening live right now. Shout out to Rickster. How's it going, bud? But we have had a couple other people who've been in the past, and next week will be another event. We do have a guest who's coming by, and so that's a reason to stop out. This has to do with some of the AC locals will hear their own name. And I want to throw big community building. Oftentimes you'll hear a podcast run with like, hey, how can I build my community? I think what you're going to see from this guest is exactly that. It's going above and beyond. It's taking a little bit of their own time, energy, money, and they're giving back to the community to make something special. So we have some awards, and I will simply leave that there. But we also have the long-awaited, how did people spend prize support money? Like, what do we want for prize? So there's a lot that you're going to see next week. It's going to be a totally fun episode, but with a guest, with some locals, with some awards, come check it out. So it'll be Friday, and it should still be at our 8:30 Central Time.
I'm interested now. I want to know how to spend my prize support money. I don't know what prize support money I have, but yeah, we'll be doing. I think we should do this as an annual thing. I want to do more like more of the Keyforge awards, right? I think too often we do focus on the deck, and obviously the deck's a big deal, but we need to kind of focus on the players too, right? Because the players are a big deal. I was actually thinking about this the other day, and we're going to kind of go off track here for just a minute, because I want Ewok and Drazcore to follow me down this tunnel. I was driving home yesterday from work.
Rabbit hole.
Yep. And I was like, man, how? Because a lot of the times, like, we do talk about the different power levels in decks, right? And they are drastic. They're pretty. They go from one end of the spectrum to the other. What do you guys think about like a tournament to have, but everyone plays the same deck?
Everyone plays
like
the same
there's
deck.
one deck. It's you are doing 4 rounds of a mirror match.
That's interesting. I've never done that. Obviously, you'd have to do it online.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you're trying to say, hey, who can play it best? I feel like actually just saying that out loud makes me think. I think Blake did something where he had two people play the same deck against each other on his YouTube channel.
He did, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, it's interesting. Like, who can you figure out how to?
Well, because a lot of the
both
times,
take
like
advantage of the other deck's weakness or your deck's weakness and
right,
exploit its.
but at the same time, protect your deck from. I don't know. I thought it was just kind of an
Mhm.
interesting idea
Yeah,
because, like, we often talk about like, oh, this is one of the top 5 decks in the world, but it does have its weaknesses. But what if every deck had the same weakness, right? But you were all playing the same deck.
I mean, for me personally, I'll be 100% honest, it kind of jumps out as snooze fest or boring.
That's kind of what I thought at first, because it's like, oh, who wants to play it? Like, that's kind of part of the fun, right? Is there, in Keyforge, there are no mirror matches.
Yeah.
Where in Magic or Flesh and Blood, you can oftentimes have that mirror match where you're playing, the same deck. That doesn't happen in Keyforge, like, ever. Actually, it just never happens. But what if?
I might be able to be convinced. I don't know. There's just so much deck variability, even with what's there. So if you go with, okay, maybe some of our better top tier decks, they have some more consistency. As it's not belonging to someone, I find that a lot of people have disassociation with it. They're not as interested in playing the deck versus this is my deck. I want to learn it. I want to, be able to master that deck. I don't know. There is some piece about pilots, but that gets into the whole pilot versus deck piece. And that's for a whole different day and not for today.
That's another discussion. I just thought it was an interesting idea. What if,
I think it would have to be the right type of deck. Like, I'm just imagining, like, let's say you have a very linear, like, Coda Rush deck where everybody's just trying to do the same thing, just trying to do it faster. Like, that's probably not as interesting as if you have a more complex deck that takes time to set things up and has, like, maybe not a killer combo, but little combos and stuff. You're trying to figure out who can take the best advantage of it. So stuff like that.
And I hear that there's different deck play styles too. So, like, you hand that same deck to different people and you will see that they are played differently. I mean, I was just talking with X-Ray and for ABR League, he was playing against someone who was running one of Z's decks, Dinobot, and he said he played it flawlessly. But there's just a different way when it's your deck and when you've had the reps with it, along with different play styles. There are combinations that you see. Sure, that's one part. I think that you'd have to have some of those intricacies in order to make it interesting and engaging. But that also then, okay, I want a little bit, medium SAS deck, lower SAS, and I'm using SAS just as a general guidance, but we want some deck that isn't going to be top tier, but then you have some variability in that you just end up with some dead cards. And so how you're setting it up, because your cards will not always come in the same specific order, that drastically changes the game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I don't know. It's interesting.
It's just an idea I had. Like I said, I don't know if it's ever going to go anywhere, but I thought it'd be interesting because oftentimes we talk about the deck and not so much the player. And again, we'll have that argument on a totally different day. But I thought, well, let's take one variable out and just it's the player.
Oh,
how would that go? I'd be very interested.
I can tease this. Keeping some of the stats, you might be able to see some highly rated decks, or what is the highest rated deck that ended up with the poorest score. That might be something that might be coming your way next week that we could go ahead and look at. And so that idea is deck archetype, deck against who the pilot is, and then deck against what else is facing for that night. Those all have huge impacts. I know that there have been numerous times where I've walked away from a sealed event and go, I have no idea how this 54 won. I skate by on, this game. Oh, and I had a bye in one of the rounds. And so those all have impacts that sometimes it just comes down to who you play too and what deck they're playing. I know that, frankly, that has caused issues in Vault tours that I've personally been in. if I didn't face certain person, in this round or in the primes, then you have a different chance at being able to win. So sometimes it's just that paper, rock, scissors coming from Keyforge.
Yeah, absolutely. But we need to get into Newton today. You guys are playing in Newton, correct?
Well, I am, and Sheep is. I don't know.
And I played. I actually was able to go ahead and fill in. So I have some experience with Newton as well. So,
So maybe let's describe what the format is. And it was actually the current Swindle team season is using this format. So that's where I've played it, and we played a number of weeks, and unfortunately just got knocked out as it's a double elimination tournament. But so the format is it's weird, it's different. So it's strictly a team format. You can't really play this solo. And in this format, each player on the team brings a deck, right? And then you're playing against another team, and in each match, you're playing a best of 2 match. Immediately when I first was hearing about this, I was like, wait, what? Best of 2? But
I was just going to ask him, like, God, I hope he goes into that. Best of 2, okay.
Yeah. So this is why it has to be a team format, right? Because if it was just one-on-one, like you just get a ton of ties, and then what's the point, right? So it's best of 2, but the way it works, and actually I didn't even put it properly here in the notes, is the first game you're playing Archon. The second game you're playing Reversal. So so that's kind of interesting there. It's like the first 2/3 of a adaptive match, right? But you never get to the chain bidding. So you never get to that third game, right? And which is interesting because I think some folks really like that third game. Some people really don't like that third game. So maybe this might appeal to folks that don't like that third game. But then how does that actually work, right? So you will score points for your team depending on how well you do. So if you go 0-2, meaning, hey, you brought your deck, their opponent brought their deck, you lost the first game, right? In Archon, you traded, you did reversal, and you lost again, right? Now they beat you with your deck. So you scored no points for your team. But if you go 1-1, right? So maybe I win with my deck, and then my opponent wins with my deck, or vice versa, I score 1 point for my team. But if I manage to go 2-0, if I win with my deck and then I win with my opponent's deck, I score 3 points for my team. So heavily advantaged. If you can go 2-0, that is what's going to score your team points, right? And whichever team has the most points that week wins the week. Is the concept, which is very interesting. It's very different. And I wasn't really sure how well it was going to work and whether I was going to, enjoy it or well, not. I mean, I'm play Keyforge. I'm always going to enjoy it, but how much was I going to like this format? So I don't know. It was very strange. I don't know, Ewok. What was your take on it in your play?
So I think the first thing that jumped out at me, I was interested as someone who enjoys adaptive and have seen adaptive, but to run a true adaptive, you're running 3 games. And so that gets really long. So I liked the idea of only playing 2. You're eliminating the chain bidding. So that was something that went ahead and stood out to me. And that really forces the premise behind it when I first saw it was shorter games, and we're going to be able to really find that middling deck. And that was kind of the idea of a deck that you play as both both Archon and Reversal. So it has to be right in that middle. I know that Tesla had been kind of something I'd seen on Sanctimonious before that also was kind of similar. And this it's slightly different and allowed you to be able to play as a team. So for me, that I like team events. That means not all the pressure's on me. So that was interesting. In reality, the big thing that jumped out at me was
he likes team events because he sucks.
a lot of very, very, very high aggressive SAS decks. So, I hate to say that, but what I was seeing similar to Adaptive is these decks have a really, really high card pool. They're solid card that when you're playing them, but they may have one very exploitable weakness. The trickier that you can get, I think the better for this format for Newton, as you know how to be able to pilot it, and you also can be able to exploit that weakness. If the weakness is not super easy to identify, it makes it trickier. That's also a little bit easier for Noon, which I liked. So you're trying to find something that it's not going to be easy to decipher and break down for your opponent, especially just looking at the card list. That was my first impression, and then I got some plays with it. So,
yeah, it's interesting because some adaptive decks, I think some players are relying on. Oh, sure, if they go 2-0, great, but they're relying on, hey, I'm going to be able to chain bid on my deck better than my opponent because I just know the deck so well. But that's taken away here.
yes.
Right? So you kind of have to bring a type of deck that is you think you might be able to go 2-0 with, and which is I don't know, which is tricky. And what we found, at least when we were playing, is we had to go to the tiebreaker a lot because we got a lot of 1-1s, which was interesting. So if it's a three-person team, at least in this Swindle League, right? If you make your own league or your own tournament, obviously you can have however many folks per team you like, but it was 3 here. So there was a few times all of us went 1-1, and so we had to go to a tiebreaker. So the way the tiebreaker works is that each team secretly selects a player and selects a deck, and it actually doesn't have to be paired, right? It could have been, Dr. Sheep bringing my deck if for whatever reason we thought that would work better for the tiebreaker. But then there's a coin flip, and the coin flip determines if you're going to play Archon or you're going to play Reversal. And you just play a single game, and whoever wins that game wins the week. And this happened to us a few times. And the one tiebreaker we won, and then this last week we lost the tiebreaker and we lost. So we got knocked out. So the tiebreaker to me was weird because it did bring up something kind of interesting, but also I'm unsure how good or bad it is. So in this matchup, we brought way stronger decks than our opponents. So I brought I think it's a 71 SAS AOA deck that is definitely stronger than its SAS says. But I didn't bring like a crazy banger deck. But our opponents brought like low 60s, and they had some tricks and stuff, but they just couldn't stand up to what we had brought. And so we sort of felt like going into the tiebreaker, at least we felt, maybe the other team didn't feel this way. Like maybe they're smarter than us. I don't know. But we felt like if the coin flip says Archon, we win. If the coin flip says Reversal, we probably lose. And it came up Reversal, and we lost. So that part was a little strange just because of the disparity in power level between the decks.
See, that's really interesting to me because the actual game that I faced, we had the deck that I brought was high 70s, 78, 79 SAS deck, and the deck that I faced against my opponent brought was a 92 SAS deck.
Okay.
So again, different style of play, different cards, but I like the idea of being able to play some of those decks that are frankly a little bit more intricate, but aren't going to go ahead and score as well. And they just don't have as much a spot in that competitive scene. So I'm always looking for a way to be able to bring them up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the interesting thing here too is that you picked your deck at the beginning of the season,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're locked in the whole season. So, so the meta was static, if you will. So, you could there wasn't it wasn't like you were changing decks each time and said, "Oh shoot, we brought way too strong decks. We should swap
Adjust.
these out for decks that are a little weirder or weaker / harder to play." No, is right. If you came in with that 92 or that 85, like that's what you were locked in with. Like I got we came in. This was sort of like a last minute thing. Like I was thinking about, maybe I'll join the Swindle League, and sort of thought about it, and was kind of sidetracked. And then it was sent out. Hey, today's the last day to sign up, and I quickly grabbed sent out a call, and so Dr. Sheep and Nugluk and I formed a little team, and so we had just a couple hours to
hypothesize, pick your decks, and kind of go with it. Yep.
So we were just like, well, let's just pick something around 70 that is 70-ish at plays a little stronger, that we think might be a little tricky to play. And I was just sort of scrolling through my decks around 70, and I saw this one, and it's the Shadow Master Jotson, if people want to look at it. But I was like, oh, I remember. It's an AoE deck. I remember this deck being better than the SAS said, like way back in AoE times, right? And so I was like, I'll bring it. And I didn't really think super hard about it. But it's got some things that make it pretty strong, that really beat up quite a few of the decks we played against. It's a Gangernaut deck. It's got double Routine Job. It's got double Dusk Witch. It's a Plague Rat deck, actually. So it's got Plague Rats. And so it doesn't really have speed, but
You're
it's got a
sick
decent amount
person for
of other
bringing a
stuff.
Plague Rat deck, by the way. sick person.
Just for you, Wookie.
I know. I remember opening Plague Rats when they first came out, and I'm like, I don't even know what the hype was around them. You know what I mean?
They were cool. That was it.
Something different.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, Plague Rats, and you're like, oh, ugh. I'm the when AoE was new and fresh and all that jazz, it was so cool, and now you're like, ugh, Plague Rat's gross, like, ugh. Nasty.
But
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
This Plague Rat deck only has 3 rats too, so that has a huge impact.
It's not crazy. All right,
you're not running with 6 or 7, so 3 is on very much on the low side.
Yeah, and I think too many of my opponents grabbed this and were able to say, like, okay, I have to just try to figure out how to make Drummer not go, Ganger not go, and sometimes we're able to do that because decks they brought were a little bit weaker, and there's no board clear on this deck, so it's not just, you can't just unlock gateway into it or whatever, but it's got some ways to Plague Rats. It's got some ping damage. It's got save the pack, right? So it's got ways to take out your opponent's board. And some of the decks I was given, I was just like, whoa, I'm going to be in trouble trying to stop this situation. And yeah, so it was just mostly 1/1, 1/1, 1/1. The other thing that was interesting for the league, actually, is that when we were picking our decks, we could not pick a deck from the same set. So we each had to pick a different set.
I guess that's not as... I mean, it's a thing that exists.
It is.
It's not exactly the most exciting of things. I mean, it's fine. It's fine.
So what it did do, though, is I do have a deck that I typically play for adaptive, and it's a Mass Mutation deck. But Ugaluk has the deck he loves for adaptive, and that's a mass mutation deck. And he's definitely more he's definitely a better adaptive player than I am. So I was like, no, you play your deck. I'm gonna play something else. And we figured AOA or DT would be good. So I did this Playgrid deck, and Sheep brought a Omnipus.
Because of course he did.
Yes, he brought an Omnipus DT deck.
Of all the things Sheep would bring, you're like, he brought Omnipus, and it's just like, yeah, of course he did. Because of course he did. That's a very him thing to do. As he just yells into the ether about his space dollars going missing. He's like old man barks at cloud. I love Sheep.
What's interesting is how. So I also ended up playing the AOA deck, and mine was Spy Weasel, the Countess Ripper. This was Jupiter's deck, and it was a double Ganger Drummerknot deck, with ironically double routine job like yours. So there are some really interesting pieces that were coming. I see that you had Iron Obelisk, and we had Iron So there was just some really interesting side by side comparisons. Now, I filled in, and unfortunately, both of those drummer gangers were buried, and without a board clear, that creates some real issues that I think I finally saw it on the second last turn where I saw both of them together. But at that point, that game was done. And this is where, similar to adaptive, if you have a deck that has limited speed or limited efficiency and you're not consistently getting to the cards, it can drastically change from one game to the next. And you have to be careful of that in adaptive, or what I saw here for Newton as well. Well, picture this: if I have a slow deck, and I get through, let's say, 2/3 of the deck, but the cards that I'm hoping for, in this case, the Gangerknot combo, they're buried, then you don't have it. Whereas if my opponent goes ahead and opens up with Gangerknot, that's a drastically different outcome in the game.
Right.
And my opponent didn't walk into it right away, but they got to it, I want to say, by turn 3. And you knew that was coming, so you have to be able to watch out for it. Again, this is where I think that Newton is interesting. You want to be able to think, can your deck win? And can it win, but also can it be exploited, and can it lose?
Okay. Yeah, if I were to pick again, I wouldn't pick a deck with like an overly powerful combo like that. And I would pick something, I think, with smaller, interesting things that could take advantage of. I don't know. Maybe I should play around with my collection and try to figure out what I would bring next time. But who knows? Next time we all might shift down and bring weaker decks, which means that relative power stayed the same. Well, I don't know.
But I think the impact and the swing on the meta is really interesting. I still remember for the first Shadow Worlds when I was playing the adaptive, all of those decks that made the top 16, I had the lowest one that was there. Oh, sorry, there was one that was lower that actually went ahead and was in the field, but it didn't make the top 16. And so the idea for playing a low sys deck, while that is there as an option, it is not frequently used just because of the ability, especially in adaptive. And I appreciate that Newton gets rid of this. Adaptive, if whoever wins game 1, if you don't finish game 3, that's who wins. So there's a huge advantage in adaptive where I appreciated that in Newton, that you're just playing the 2 games and you're able to get it done in a reasonable amount of time. And you're not worried about, well, I just pushed for time on game 3. Time games, doesn't matter if it's 1 or 3, they're just feel bad moments. And I hate to say it, but in adaptive, or in this case in Newton, you need to have something a little bit more intricate, which sometimes takes some thought process when you're playing those decks.
Yeah.
I don't understand why everybody thinks time is such a feel bad moment.
Because you play a game and you're not going ahead and actually you enter the competition with an assumption that we are playing for 3 keys.
Yes.
And the end result is when it goes to time, it's not a matter of that we're splitting the time 50-50.
Mhm.
Frankly, you could use 95% of the time and I could use 5% of it. And I'm not even saying what that is. And that can be the difference for you going ahead and winning. That's a feel bad moment for individuals is when it's on
I wonder
time.
if that's viewed differently in Europe, because like soccer goes to a tie very often, as you hear my daughter in the background because she's dancing around. I wonder if that's viewed very different, because I'm like, there's tons of games that like you just go to time, and if it's a tie, it's a tie.
Yeah, but here it's not a matter of that it's a tie,
right?
Because there is a winner, and we pick that based on some criteria that is different from the normal established game criteria.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there have been other people who have looked at end game rules and how to modify or switch. But I do think in the competitive arena that we struggle because we're playing best of 1, which has a little bit more luck factor. And if we go to 3, it adds significant amount of time to the day. And from the judging side, when we were doing Keyforge Live, to run 3 events, I could only imagine that if you're running it, 6, 7 rounds in a day.
Right.
So I understand why it's done, but it becomes a feel bad moment if you get high rolled in a game, or in this case, if you simply run out of time.
Yeah.
Like if we play 2 games and you win 1 and I win 1, and we're bidding on it really limits the strategy for bringing a lower deck that is a little bit more intricate because you just lose because you lost the first round. I mean, that's where the counter argument is.
I guess is kind of I've moved on with time, and it's very so Flesh and Blood, obviously for you guys have been playing a lot of it lately, and there is a draw in Flesh and Blood. Like if you go to time, you and your opponent go to time, and nobody has knocked each other out, it's a tie. Which I understand the frustration of a tie. For those of you listening, I was playing Oldhim, and he's a very, very defensive character till he's not, right? He just wants to block until he bashes your brains in, and then he goes from there. However, a lot of people get kind of panicky around Oldhim, and they take a lot of extra time. So I went to the old, I don't know if you guys watch UFC or not, but I went to the old Dana White mantra, right? And I understand what you're saying, like to bring an intricate deck. Like I went to the Dana White mantra, like I'm not gonna let the judges decide, right? I'm gonna end this right here, right now. Like I'm gonna knock them out in the first round, and there's not going to be any question. And I know that's not really a possibility in Keyforge, I guess to a degree. In Archon, it probably is way more than it is in Sealed, because like you're handed 3 decks and you have to do the best you can, and it is what it is. But I don't know, maybe just like when it's competitive, it's like, why would you? I don't understand the thought process of even like, oh, it's a good deck, it just takes a while to set up. Well, good decks that take a while to set up are probably not going to be there at the finish line.
But that's where the issue is that it limits then what can be played in the meta.
Right.
That it's limiting some of the control pieces, because there are some phenomenal control decks, but they take a bit to set up.
Right.
And that is a point of frustration now.
Well, they're not competitive then.
Well, but that's the piece is if we're playing with a split time, then it becomes more viable. But if you can see that you can win just by stalling out, we have a very good community, but there are still people who will go ahead and they are competitive to the point that they will stall long enough because they can see where the timer is in order to take the win in that match.
Right. And I think personally, like that's where we need to like, and I get it. Nobody ever wants to call a judge on a person for stalling out, but like that kind of just needs to happen. Like we need to stop being so damn nice. And I understand that like the niceness is a very much a part, like as a community, we're very, very nice. Well, guess what? Even in the nice community, there are a few bad apples, right? Like I don't even want to like point anybody out, but we all, to a degree, in the extraordinarily competitive scene, like we know who they are.
So let's use myself, because then no one else can have hurt feelings. If you have said player named Ewok who is playing slower, and then on another turn later plays at normal speed, you will feel that you're in a really difficult spot to go ahead and call a judge because it's inconsistent. There are times where everyone needs to think more and to think less. And you don't know what's happening with that individual, with their day, with their mental capacity. And we can go on and on. It is not that, okay, you all of a sudden played a turn long, I need a judge, because it ruins the impact of the game. It's supposed to be a social experience where I'm going ahead and working. I still remember a Prime where I went ahead and called over a judge because I felt that there was a time component, and there was a statement that was said specifically to me, I will just go to time. And it was because of that statement, I called the judge over.
Yeah.
And you were 100% within your right.
Yeah. And do you want to know what? It ruins, I kid you not, it ruined the experience of that match. It caused a little bit of tilt for the opponent and for myself, because they just sat there, and it's supposed to be a fun time, and it wasn't fun anymore, because that individual said, I can go ahead and sit here. I can go ahead and turn cards back and forth and not really commit to finishing the round, and I will go ahead and win. And that's what they did. And there was nothing I could do about it outside of have the judge. And they're like, well, based on what time is here, you have under 10 minutes. Yeah, that's fine. And I'm like, that's not, it's a frustrating moment if you play the game out and you know that you're playing a standard game where, let's say that time was split, that game doesn't go ahead and it's not won.
Yeah.
I will tell you another issue that came up in the adaptive for Shadow Worlds. We had that game for our adaptive match. It went to the third round. Yeah. I bid the right amount of chains on that deck, which was not my deck, but we did not get a chance to play because we had some issues with TCO. We bounced from spot to spot. And so there was roughly about 10 minutes that was lost in playtime. When we got to the final piece, we are on, that deck had just started to roll. And when I say started to roll, it went from being down 2 keys to 0 to 2 keys to 2 keys. But the difference in amber went to the tiebreaker based on the 10 minutes, and it was over. And that's when it's competitive, and we haven't even gotten into money yet, but with Shadow Worlds there, the team's like, yep, it's over, it's done. Well, obviously we took an extra time. You know that because we've bounced out. We've been kicked out from TCO and from the setup that was there for Shadow Worlds. Not their fault at all. We went and we created our own game, but those are years later, they're still sitting with me as feel bad moments. I've played plenty of Keyforge games where I haven't had that. And frankly, it's just easier to go ahead and say, fine, you can go ahead and take it. So I think that I would much rather have, if it goes to time, then there is a straight, here's 1 point for each person, similar to Newton. I know that we're off task here, but the time goes and neither person gets the win and neither person gets the loss. You take 1 point and you keep scoring. And you can still cut for your top 16 in that way. But I think that's it. But even there's points where I know I can't win, but I can keep you from winning, and I'm going to take the point. And there are people in any game, any competitive piece that will go ahead and take advantage wherever they can. And so until we figure out how to make that as balanced as possible, right now we're playing with our tiebreaker rules.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, thankfully, there's not too many folks.
No,
it is there's
not a ton. It is a select crew, and like I said, most of us who have been to multiple highly competitive events, we know and understand who they are, right? And like I said, I know we talked months and months and months, probably years ago now. There was the conversation of a time clock, which still to this day I'm very against. just due to the fact of like we had such a struggle, flipping keys, and now we're gonna add a time clock. Ooh, like that seems like a bad idea. I think that's another topic for another day. We can get on. We can get on time and all of that. Because I guess I do have some pretty strong feelings on it, where I'm like, hey, this is the way it is, and I totally understand and respect like your thoughts and opinions on it. But like, I mean, the gravity of the situation is it's we're in a competitive environment, and it's kind of just is what it is. But like you said, there are always those people who will 100% try to take that competitive advantage wherever they can find it, no matter what. So let's get into. I gotta check our notes now because we got so far off to the left.
Dresscore's got us set for suggestions for the format. So Dresscore, we've been talking too long. What do you got here?
So I was just sort of reflecting on, hey, if I had a chance to tweak anything about the format, what would I do? And I think I would be happy to play the way it was again, but I would be curious to be able to change the deck around between rounds, such that you could try to be shifting, try to be getting to the right meta. I think that would be interesting. I think honestly, though, the thing that might in my head at least help a little more is fewer ties. We were just talking about ties and stuff. Maybe if we had a couple more people on the team, right, more than 3 folks. Because at least with the decks we brought, maybe this was our fault. There was a lot of tying. So if you have 5 players, 8 players, I don't know, however many, it feels like there'd be less chance that you'd sweep 1-1s. That you'd have more 2-0s here and there to be able to less often go to the tiebreaker. And the tiebreaker felt. I mean, you still got to play a game, but I guess with the combination of not being able to switch your deck and going to a lot of ties meant sometimes it felt like, hey, the coin flip was the decider. So I don't know. But overall, I liked the format. I don't know that I would say I loved the format, but I enjoyed it. I'm very happy that I played in the Swindle team season, and I'd play it again.
Yeah, and my thoughts, I saw, again, very, very high SAS deck that was there with a very exploitable weakness that could be seen but wasn't detailed. I'm still looking for how can I use these not completely reversal decks, but decks that frankly aren't going to see any other play. And here's the piece that I can say. I cannot come up with a single format. So anyone who can come up with a format as a whole, I give you complete props. No, because it's difficult. So I love that people are out there trying to think of it, whether that is our Keyforge adventures for solo play and they're making their own, or these new formats. So I enjoyed being able to play it, but it just isn't for me at this point. I would play it again because I'd play Keyforge again, but that's where I was.
What? Yeah. You play this junk game again?
I do all the time.
I know. I'm just messing with you. All right, let's get into spoiler territory here. Lately we've seen some winds of exchange.
So so we got to put this out there. There actually was an announcement. So if you don't want to hear spoiler, you can drop off. We try to put it at the very, very end here. We'll kind of go with our spoiler and then a little wrap up. But I know some people are anti-spoilers, so. All right, I think we've given enough time
even now. For real, a spoiler, right? Like there's conjecture, is this is correct? All that, this appeared on the Sanctimonious forum, where somebody just sort of dropped somebody who we think is involved.
Sorry, that's a Beastie Boys line.
Well, but they're credible, and they've shown information in the past. So this isn't just random conjecture. And on a side note, FFG, if we are willing to go ahead and jump at conjecture of a future card.
Just imagine what we do with just one.
Yes, I kid you not. Like this, even if you have it dragged out where, here's your whole set, here's one card
every other week.
Okay, I would say every week because I mean you're set there. Okay, even some of the repeats, people it brought some excitement again for Keyforge. So I will say that it is a great way to be able to entice us to be able to bring others back and have that vigor for the game. But
all right,
what is this card? This potential card?
Is it got a name?
We don't know the name.
We don't know the name. I didn't think we knew the name.
No.
But it is enhanced with 1, 2, 3, 4,
6.
Is that 6 Ember?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
Enhanced 6 Ember.
The card itself is not enhanced. It's bringing 6 Ember to the rest of the deck. So it has enhancements, which means enhancements are coming back.
Oh, so it's enhanced 6.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And well, that card's significantly better then. Well, maybe not. I don't know.
Well, let's get into it.
Part's important.
The next part's pretty important. The text on this card is you cannot play or discard this card. And it's an artifact?
Yeah.
That's all that we've been told.
Okay.
So what are your first thoughts, Wookie? Because we kind of surprised you with this one.
Yeah, I mean, at first I thought it just had 6 Ember pips on it. Like when I read it first, I'm like, it has 6 Ember pips, but you can't play it. It's fucking useless. Like it's so useless. It's not even funny. I was like,
it's just for furnaces.
Yeah, if you can't play it and it just sits in your hand, like, what do you do? What do you do with it? And I'm just thinking, like, okay, so now it's an enhanced 6, so it's scattered 6 around the deck. You still can't play the card. You can archive it. I can definitely archive it, but guess who's missing in this set? The house that does Logos? A whole lot of archiving. Logos.
Yep.
So I mean, again, it depends on what else is in the set. On the surface, this card is called a chain where I come from, and it's not good. But I guess we don't know. We don't. Well, here's the issue. We don't know if anybody's going to be able to archive at all in this set, right? We know Mars is coming back, and they dabble with archiving. Mm-hmm. We have no idea about the new house and like what their special mechanic is. Like maybe like their what is their horrible, awful name again? New house?
What?
Traders of the Equinox Past? I don't know.
Something
They're
like
traders,
that, yeah.
right?
Yep.
They're traders. So if I could find, like, I think their mechanic would be really cool if I could trade cards from my hand to their hand. Like, if this is like, oh, you can have this card. It's a chain.
Mm-hmm. Here you go.
You just won't be drawing.
Enjoy.
Like, that'd be cool. But, like on the surface, just this card with what we know right now, it's even with 6 Ember, I don't know how many Ember is a chain worth nowadays?
That's the
question.
Big question. Yep.
Yeah, because it's not.
And what happens if this enhances itself?
Then you're really sad. Just a dud. Really, really sad.
I feel like they would have programmed it such that it wouldn't enhance itself. I've no.
Well, you would like to know, but they lost the algorithm, so we have no idea.
Well, yeah, this is true. They haven't programmed it to do anything.
They haven't programmed it to do jack diddly. So no one knows.
I mean, it feels very swingy, right? Because, so let's say, hey, yep, you populate 6 Ember across your cards, and then this card, which does nothing except slow you down. If this card is on the top of your deck,
game over.
Like, yeah, that is
draw, cry, concede, scoop, next game.
Wait. But if it's all the way in the bottom of your deck, then hey, you got 6 extra Ember. That's a lot of Ember. And
that's a key. That's a whole key.
Yeah,
it is a whole key.
Yeah, and you didn't.
Or
got lucky.
Whatever card this enhances has just become Infernus food.
Well, but again, it's going to be spread out.
Yeah.
So I mean,
hopefully
yes.
Spread out. We don't know.
It's
could
true.
all end up on one card for all we know. Could you imagine Infernusing for 6? Oh, gross. Gross.
Well, most 5, right? Because 5 is the maximum.
Yes,
icons on a card.
five's the
Well,
max.
as of last set, that could change. We don't know.
No,
The
the
whole thing's changing. Everything's changing.
I don't think they're going to go ahead and change that. We've seen it for the last 2 sets. For your house, it was the Compacts of Equidon.
Compacts of Equidon.
You were decently close.
I was close. Something about trading. I don't remember. Yeah, I don't know. But either way, like, I don't know. This I don't. Again, it's so hard with so incomplete information, right? If you're like, oh, I know that there's going to be 100%. Mars is back, so there's going to be some way to, quote unquote, be able to archive this, because I can archive it. It's no longer a dead card.
Well, but even here, as I was thinking about archiving, you take your archives at another point, and what's coming back in your hand?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So it isn't a matter, because oftentimes archiving decks aren't just going to head and archiving just to leave the cards there.
But hold on, because this is Mars archiving. Mars likes to just kind of leave them there.
But even the preview that we had from the previous Mars, like for this set, Mars is coming in with another little sect, and so it has a different focus point that I'm seeing so far. I don't know if that's going to carry over. I know we did see for the token. Yes, you guys are both 100% right in that we have no cards from this set, or very, very, very few. So we don't have enough information. I think the idea for the teaser is great. I would love to see if it's translated, if this is actually what's the card reads. I think wording is going to be extremely important. I think the idea of is what does this have? Rare, uncommon, or common? Also, shout out FFG. Please, please, please put cards that are impactful in the common slot. Okay, I know Z's not here, but I will take up that quest for him. That is one of the true power spots for Keyforge. Not to have these rares where they come up every once in a while, but put it in a common slot and it will change the game, because you're going to see multiples of them. That's the difference between Coda and what we've seen much, much later. So I'm not arguing this in a common slot. I hope that they're going ahead. Yeah, I hope that they're having ways to trade. I mean, that makes sense with the title for this set. But when I'm looking at 6 printed amber, I was not a huge fan of the enhancements. And I will tell you, when enhancements stack, when you have multiple cards with them, we saw what it can do in MM. Mm-hmm. So I can't go ahead and say, oh, this is just off.
I want more of that. I want more MM. More MM. Bring it on. More MM. More.
See, this is what's odd. I think I'm still the odd entity that most of the cards do not wow me in MM, but it is the combination of how they all interact with those enhancements that really can do broken things. There's no other way of saying it.
I want the power creep in this game to get so incredibly insane that like games are over in 10 minutes. And I'm not
kicking you off.
I'm not kidding. Like, no, Keyforge is in such a desperate need of a power creep.
You think?
It's
no.
Yes, no. Keyforge needs a little bit of power creep.
See, I think the idea. Yeah, go ahead.
Trash. You just need the next set to be on level, right? It can't be a stinker, right?
It cannot be a stinker. DT was a stinker. For the health of the game, this set cannot be a stinker. It cannot be. If the next set is a stinker, this game's dead.
The only stinker was AOA.
DT was a stinker.
No, I disagree with you. I think that there are some very, very good DT decks, and I think DT as a whole is extremely fun to play. But DT plays differently, and it requires you to think in a different way.
You can go stand in the corner by the other AOA enthusiasts. DT was horrible. DT was a very bad set.
DT has Amber Control where AOA doesn't. There's a huge difference. Huge difference.
Okay, so instead of just fully being the redheaded stepchild, he's now just the stepchild. Right? Like, no, I'll give you DT was probably better than AOA, but it is still just a horrible set.
I will give you that
I think it's fun.
Yeah, I think it is a lot of fun, especially in sealed. I think for adaptive, it brings in some chain bidding with the tide that really can mess with you.
But we don't play adaptive.
I understand.
No
but I'm saying,
competitive person is playing adaptive, and we keep using this excuse of, well, it has some good adaptive stuff. Who is playing adaptive? Who? No one.
I mean, we just talked about a quasi-adaptive format like the whole first half of the episode.
I understand that, but that is a one-off, right? If you're going to, like, here's the deal, like, and I love adaptive as the idea, but it is proven in practice it cannot be okay, I don't want to say cannot. It's proven in practice it is just too long to be a competitive format. That's sheer the time it takes to play adaptive, no one has that kind of time, right? Nobody's taking a week off to go to a vault tour, right? We want it Friday, we want it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then everyone just goes home Sunday. Like Sunday's the team event, and everybody just boogies out of it. That's what everybody wants.
Isn't that what Vault Warrior was planned for multiple day event?
Yeah, on a weekend.
No, it was actually earlier. If you looked at what was scheduled for Miami area, they were all the way earlier in the week. I believe it was a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay,
Sunday,
but that's fine. We're talking, the 1% of the 1% here, right? Like, I mean, we're talking percentage of a percentage, and I love the idea of adaptive. Like, I really, really do. I think it's a great thought. It's really cute. However, when I go to a vault tour, more likely than not, when I go to a vault tour, it's gonna be sealed anyways. Why? Because I don't have, I didn't spend thousands of dollars. Well, I did spend thousands of dollars on decks, but I didn't spend,
what I mean? Decks
I don't have that repertoire of really good decks, right? So I want to play sealed because that's where I think my ability as a player has the best time to shine, right? And adaptive's not it because no. And again, I know we've had some adaptive tournaments, we've had some adaptive this, but when it comes to the grander scale of Keyforge and the bigger picture of the tournament scene, no one is playing adaptive.
All right. Go ahead, Draz, and then
I think there are players who really like adaptive for some of the reasons you just named for sealed, right?
Absolutely, and I'm not saying that that's not a thing that exists.
Yeah, and I think online it's used. It's in the ABR league. I guess it is a very long day if you truly do an adaptive vault.
It's not being run because of the judges. Being on the judge side, it's extremely long for that across multiple days. But we are talking DT, so let's refocus there. I want you to know that when we're talking DT, that DT has the Amber control, and it has not had a vault tour or any extreme competitive experience.
It doesn't need one.
That's where we are. I have been down on what's there for the competitive side, but there are a number of DT competitive decks that can be competitive. Now, here's the piece. In my opinion, when we saw Star Alliance, when we saw Arsaurian come in from Worlds Collide, they were hot, extremely hot, over the top, and that was phenomenal for bringing in those new houses. Unfathomable, when we saw it come in for DT, you're in a pandemic, you're not getting out to play. And Unfathomable, unfortunately, is split. It has two personalities.
It has it has a Mars syndrome.
It
has
does.
The same problem Mars has.
I agree with that. I think that it's a little bit. It's different from Mars, but yes, it has two personalities. If you can get Unfathomable lined up in one goal, it can do some wonders. So do not go ahead and throw that out. It plays differently though, and so DT will make you think differently. Some decks though in DT, again, they're a small percentage like AOA, but they can pull their weights and they will be able to be sticking around. So I'm not throwing them out. I think that they have a much higher chance as a whole set, just because DT does not have the Amber control issues that AOA has.
I will agree with that. I will tell you that DT is better than AOA. How many sets of Keyforge have we had now? 5?
Mm-hmm.
Am I right on that
Coda,
one? 5?
AOA,
Right.
WC, MM, DT.
5? Okay, so it's number 4.
DT's number 5. Yeah.
No, DT was number 5.
No, he's placing them as
overall.
well.
I'm ranking them.
Oh, you're ranking. I gotcha.
I'm ranking them
power
because I would tell you MM. It's between MM and Worlds Collide. They could almost be 1A, 1B. And then put the other one in there, and then you have Coda, and then DT AOA.
I mean, you might be right. I think there's a big gap with not that there aren't really good AOA decks there, but
there were. I mean, there's always going to be
gap.
good decks in every single set, right? Just with how there's never going to be just a complete 100%. This set will never ever put in any good decks. Every set, even bad sets, are going to have good decks. What I'm saying is that just with how DT was structured, I don't know if it was the algorithm or somebody, like, I don't know what happened, but DT just, it cannot get it done. I said this with AOA. Everyone scolded me and told me AOA is good, and then it was like, all right, cool, and then it just never did
Dr.
anything. Sheep did. Sheep likes the pain. He's a little bit of a masochist that way. He likes the pain. So for him, it's fine. But I mean, for all of AOA's lifespan, I said AOA is a bad set. It is not a good set. It's very, very bad. And everyone went, we got to give it a chance. You got to give it a chance. You got to give it a chance. And then I kept asking, and then we just kept moving the goalposts. Okay, well, what's a chance? Well, it needs to go if Gen Con. Gen Con is going to be the real test for DT. Okay, Gen Con's the test for DT. I'm sorry, AOA. And AOA just got blown out. It didn't even stand a prayer. And of course, there's an AOA deck here and an AOA deck there that are very good. Of course there are. There were good cards in AOA. There's just nothing that could compete. I fully think, and I know we're like probably well over our time here now. Winds of Exchange, there so desperately needs to be power creep right now in Keyforge that it's not even funny. Like, the game needs to get a little bit faster. It does. Like 110%.
What if you could do a 10-minute adaptive match?
I'm more into that. I think Keyforge has its realm and focus in being niche and being able to bring in a new style, a new focus. You see the tide mechanic here for DT. I think that for Winds of Exchange, the ability to trade or exchange, and again, we have no idea what's there. We've seen some tokens, but we don't really know what they are. How is that going to impact? But that's how Keyforge can still be algorithmically generated. It can be unique, and yet it will make you think differently as we go forward in the sets.
I still think it could be. I still think it could be all those things, and somehow we can get games done in like 15 minutes. I think it could.
That'll help.
What's that?
Practice with your deck. That'll help.
Not even practice. Like it needs. Keyforge needs something to like reinvigorate itself. Like, it so desperately
like
needs just a shot in the. I'm just gonna say it. It needs a shot in the ass. It needs a little bit of adrenaline. It needs a little get up and go. Like, because a lot of the time, Keyforge games, 35-minute rounds, and we're still going to time. That's real long. 35-minute rounds. Pokemon's getting 3 games in that amount of time. It needs to kind of quicken the pace a little bit. Which means, especially in an algorithm, and I said this a long time ago too, especially in an algorithmically generated decks, and you need to have less, like, just absolute duds. And the unfortunate part is, no, you got to have some duds.
Yeah,
you do.
I think,
but not like I feel like 50% of. I feel like a lot of cards in Keyforge, and 50% of most sets is filler. It's a card that might do something if it gets in combination with this card every third Thursday on Grandma's church schedule. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
every card has its place, and every card can combo off, but it has to be with this, and it has to it's what Jupiter calls Christmas land. If I get this, and I get this, and I get this, I win. But you need the 9 steps beforehand. And right. Keyforge is a long enough game where you can get those 9 steps. But who has time for all that?
I do.
I know you do. but
I do, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell you what were the 2 decks that were talked about tonight. Both the deck that Drazkor and I show were both AOA decks. What am I seeing on ABR for decks that are being played? AOA. While they didn't have the shine early on, people play with what they're used to. In my opinion, Coda has gone down drastically from where it was.
Yeah, because MM's way better.
It is.
It plays a very, very different game. And when you're comparing them, it does not match up set to set. So I think that's where you have to realize that people have been playing with this Coda mentality, and MM goes ahead and beats it. Again, paper, rock, scissors. But when you're looking at it, there's things that AOA can frankly come around and do that are better than what you're seeing there for MM.
No, you bite your tongue, sir. That is not a thing.
Again, they are select decks, but I am seeing, again, we've had more experience, and this is the issue that we have with DT. DT has not seen the light of day in tournament play. It has not seen the light of day even in us playing in a casual environment because of the present state with a pandemic and how OP is organized and run right now. And that is not necessarily all OP in FFG's fault, but it is in part, there are other games that are running it. I think that if we are running games in a casual format, that DT increases play, but you will always see sets showing a lot more success a set or 2 after they've been released because people have won ahead and selected the better decks from there, or the decks that they identify as having something that's unique and cool that can do something special. But it doesn't happen when we see the first set. I mean, what we saw for AOA is completely different now, a couple sets later.
I hope you're right, because my DT is about to find my D trash can.
You can go ahead and send your DT over to me. We'll call it even for the Magic that was traded earlier. So we're good.
You have no idea how tempted I am.
Sure.
Do you want a bunch of DT?
I like DT. I will gladly play DT. I have no problem with it. I'm actually sad because I just have one DT sealed deck that's left, and that's what I've been playing for sealed. I really enjoy it. And to be honest, I've gone more into the casual environment with some of these 50s SAS DT decks just to have fun with them, toy around after we're done with sealed. So I am enjoying it. And I think that's the piece. I'm not looking for, I'm coming out and spanking you with this 54s, but it is very enjoyable to play in a casual environment, to play in a competitive environment, and to see people squirm when they're not expecting what you have. But you have to find the right deck. It's how those cards interact with each other.
Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm too competitive. I need to stop being so competitive. I don't play for fun. Well, I guess I do. No, because I don't. Because even when I'm playing for funsies,
that's where you bring the heart.
I'm bringing heart.
Heart of the forest.
just to make your life
double
Pester Grove, heart of the forest. She'd be like, "What's up? Oh, did you not want to go to time tonight? No? Oh, that's a shame because we are."
And we have cycles back around for going to time. I love it.
All right. That's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Drazkor, what do you got for final thoughts?
Final thought, I guess the new Swindle season's going to be starting. So, that the next season is a triple triad. So 3-player teams. Each player brings a triad. One player brings a no SAS cap triad. Next player brings a 75 SAS cap triad. Third player brings a 60 SAS cap triad. Seems interesting. I'm going to poke around and see what happens with that. So thought I'd throw it out there and in case people want to get on a team and get signed up.
All right, Ewok, what you got?
One, if you want to get a hold of us, you can go ahead and reach us at Discord. We do have Archon's Corner, a great area. I know that we are playing events. There are so many events online. So the Keyforge community is live and strong. There is Archon that's happening on Sundays at 8:30 Central. Sorry, 8 o'clock Central. Mm-hmm. You have Tuesday that is sealed, both Sunday and Tuesday at 8 Central. Those are with Sheep. You have Wednesday with Lokakar, that is with Pink Bunny Games. And so another great event that is being run. I see a lot of people filling out the events. All of those events have been honestly a blast to be able to play in and to just talk with people. So come out for those events. But please, if you have a question, reach out to us via Discord, reach out via email. Again, think about the last episode because you can actually get a hold of me versus messaging Wookie. And outside of that, stay healthy. We want to get back to playing FFG. Please put more OP out. Listen to us release a spoiler card because we go crazy for it. So anything to keep us in this game, we're loving it.
And just so you guys know, I should have probably mentioned this last week. I don't know what's going on with the feed. It is taking about a day for Spreaker to get it and then distribute it. I don't really know what's going on there. I have no control over that. So I'm only going to control what I can control. So I know normally I would put it out like Thursdays. Even this, like right now, it's telling me it's out, but it's not. I don't know what Spreaker's got going on. So just pay attention. So you're more than likely going to probably start seeing them on Fridays until Spreaker gets their shizzle back together because it's just not working right now. So.
And I know that we teased it earlier, but I'm going to put it in again. Live recording. I know we're every Thursday, but next week is special because we have someone special guest stopping by, some locals, some awards. We got a lot going on, but that will be on January 28th at 8:30 Central right here in Archon's Corner in the Discord on AC Live. So come check it out, stop by, and here it's going to be a fun episode.
All right, guys, and with that being said, we'll see y'all next week.
Be fortunate, everyone.
I'm a sicko rap schizo, killing these instrumentals. The illest kid with a pencil make titties swing like a breaststroke. Beast mode, like playing your PS3 with a cheat code. Or opening that door when you saw that the sign said keep closed. That sorta ish. Morbid, I'm shitting on them like porcelain. Torturous, they looking for me, find me where the fortune is. Contortionist, drinking 40s and Morgans. I'm a sorcerer. They told me life's a bitch, so I fucked it till I got bored of her. It's Mercules.